This webinar is called the 7 Steps to Launch Your Coaching Program. Step number 3 is when we start to look at developing a product. Now, obviously, you need something to sell. A lot of people struggle with what to sell, or they struggle with what content to develop and how to structure it, etc. And one of the things that I've used for myself and some of my clients and I teach is called a content skeleton. And it's a way for you to basically just create almost like a tree of all of your content around, a certain seeker, right? So if you had this seeker, what would you teach them in order to get them from point A to point B? What would you teach them? And inside of each one of those high level concepts, what's the lower level concept? And each side of each one of those lower level concepts, what are the exercises that you would teach and whatever. And when you go through the content skeleton, which usually takes, anywhere between an hour, 2 hours, then you literally have this library of content, and you could go into that content skeleton and film 100 different videos with the content that you just outlined, or do a 5-day seminar, or teach 10 minutes worth of your content. It becomes like an accordion where you can contract it down or you can expand it wide depending on how much time you have and depending on how deep you go. But if you do that content skeleton, then you'll never ever again have to wonder about what content you can give, or if somebody asks you what you teach, what you could speak on, or what have you. It's easy. You just go into your content skeleton, you just pull it right out. So that's what we would do to start, is brainstorm all of the content that you have, and then we decide what product you're actually going to create, right? And as I've been saying, it depends on who your seeker is. It depends on what their buying habits are. Don't try to sell, like a very famous marketing concept is, don't sell hospital beds to hotels. Hospital beds are fantastic. Hotels aren't interested because they don't buy hospital beds. So don't try to sell a webinar program to a market that doesn't understand what webinars are. They don't see any value. They don't buy them, right? So you've got to really focus on what your seeker wants, needs, and what they already buy. Now, unless there's a reason not to, generally my suggestion is that you start with an audio program, like a group coaching program that lasts 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something like that, because that's a relatively easy program to produce. It's easy to record. It's easy to then edit and have an audio product. So unless there's another reason, I would suggest that. But there are all kinds of factors to consider when it comes to what product you're going to do. How are you going to structure it? How are you going to title it, which is immensely important? What's the price? How are you going to deliver it? Is it going to be all online? Are you going to do live events with it? Is it just going to be a do-it-yourself, like a collection of archives? How are you going to brand it? How does it fit into your overall brand? How are you going to package it, promote it? Are you going to partner with other people? How are you going to sell it? Obviously, online sales pages, videos, one-on-one conversations over the phone. So there's all kinds of variables to consider, but all of those are dependent on the product you select according to who your seeker is and what they buy. So now we have a product identified, and maybe we've created it, or we know that we're going to create it after we sell it. Now the next step is to create a launch calendar.